So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of Leaders Lounge, a place where we have candid conversations with leaders. Speaking of leaders, we have an amazing guest today,
Hello.
none other than Sanika Gokhale, who is the Director of HR at P&G. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
So, before we start with the conversation, let me tell you how did we come up with this idea. During our summer internship process, we all of our senior batch had a great opportunity to actually interact with hotshots of all these fancy firms, right? And then we understood that why should we keep this conversation with ourselves? And that's why we came up with this idea of bringing these conversations with you right here at Excel. So talking about XLRI, Sanika, you were here 8 years back as well. So why don't you share with us your experience of XLRI and how is it like being back here after 8 years?
Sure. Thank you so much. Firstly, I have to applaud all of you for this wonderful initiative. I hope that, I know that this is the beginning and it's the first episode, so really no pressure on me. I'm only the first guest. But I hope you guys only get bigger and better from here. This is a beautiful initiative and I hope the students actually make the most use of it. Like you mentioned, you had small pockets of wisdom through your individual conversations, and if you're able to impart that to a larger organization, nothing like it. I am from the batch of 2013, 2015. I was part of the HRM section. My roll number was 13101, if I recall that right. And of course, it's absolutely lovely to be back on campus. Being here has just brought back so many amazing memories for me. There are so many things that I've learned at Excel, I can't even begin to count. And in fact, this experience only adds one more to that list because it's also the first time that I'm being part of such a serious setup and having conversations with people. So this is one more thing that now that the campus has taught me. On a very serious note, so I started off, I think MAXI was the one committee I really wanted to be a part of, even before I wanted to join, before I sort of came into Excel. So I was extremely excited when I got the opportunity and I was actually selected to MAXI. I think the 2 years were absolutely wonderful. I remember the first term being grueling. I hope that is the case even today. Because honestly, even though it seemed so overwhelming at that point in time, it's taught me one quality, which is resilience, that I think is genuinely the most important quality one can have, right? And I think through the pandemic, etc., that quality has only been put to test on multiple occasions. And I feel like I've been managed to do pretty well through those circumstances because of that one quality. I've had amazing friends at XLRI. I've built networks who I still rely on for many things and anything that we need to drive. So, whenever there's something that we're kind of dealing with at work, you quickly open your phone, you kind of reach out to a couple of your batchmates, and they always have something useful and something important that they can share with you. So that's been great. I've made friends for life. An interesting fact is that I also met my husband via Excel and via MAXI actually. So that's an added bonus of also being part of the Excel journey. But yeah, it's been an absolutely lovely time and I'm so overwhelmed and happy to be back. Lot has changed, by the way, on campus since I returned. So I came and I started looking for Dadu. He wasn't at the place that he used to be at. I heard that he's moved. But yeah, there are some changes that I'm extremely thrilled about. You have this swanky new campus. It's very, very professional. I love the room I'm living in at the IC. So yeah, I think we're doing a great job and thanks and kudos to all of you for doing that.
Great, sorry, Sanika. So talking about XLRI, we all have had our best, I think everybody has their favorite spot at XLRI, right? Everybody, har raat mein wahan pe jaake they used to stay, etc. What was your favorite spot at XLRI during your time, if you remember?
L-top maybe, for sure. I think that definitely was one of the most favorite, spots to sort of chill at. I think Vishuddha would be the other one because most of the times when you chill at night, it would be post lectures and after like finishing a couple of your assignments, you would be hungry and you crave a midnight snack and then you would walk up to Vishuddha and you would end up meeting and bumping into a lot of people. So I think those two would be like the two best spots that come to mind.
Definitely Vishuddha. I think even after this, we might go to Vishuddha to eat something.
Absolutely. That's like very much on my bucket list.
Okay, now talking about MAXI. So luckily MAXI has a great repertoire of all of that, right? And we were doing some digging and we found something very interesting. So what Maxi does is, before every selections, even now, they have a form where you have to fill some answers, right? And we found that you had a very interesting answer to the question, is the customer a moron? Uh, we would love for our audience to hear that answer. So, Sanika, is the customer a moron?
So you want my version, like my take on it today, or
Both. So, like, what did you write then, and how has that evolved over the last?
I don't think I remember very clearly what I wrote then. You've been kind enough to share it. But before that, like I try very hard to keep my social media clean, right? So there are no traces where people can like pull something up and make fun of me. So I'm so like thrilled, and let's talk after on how you went digging around for that particular answer and like kind of brought it up here. Also, what I'd like to do is, of course, this is all hinting at the fact that I've not written a great answer, but that was my 21-year-old self, and I'm not going to apologize for it. But what I'm interested in learning about is what were the answers that the other folks gave that I still was chosen despite it. Okay, anyway. So I think at that point, I vaguely remember saying that customers fall prey to a lot of promotions, they fall prey to a lot of advertising, and they're gullible, and we're sort of able to manipulate them into buying what we think they should be owning. I think that's pretty much what I wrote back then. Context to that is I was also an advertising student, right? So I came from this world where I thought key ads could be one medium or one forum via which you would be able to change consumer perceptions and really get them to do whatever you wanted to do. If you ask my take on it today, no, I don't think a customer is a moron. I mean, each one of us sitting here is a customer. So I definitely don't think like that anymore. In fact, I would say customers are even savvier and smarter today, right? Like because a lot of information is available at your fingertips and you essentially can know anything you need to know about whatever you need to consume. Having said that, customers are definitely impressionable, right? So if you give them or equip them with the right set of information, you can influence their choices to a certain extent. And I'll just talk about a couple of examples, right? So I work for P&G now, and we have a product which is called Ariel, right? Which is a detergent or a liquid. So what happened, and at P&G, honestly, consumer is at the heart of everything that we do. So what happens is over time, washing machines and the way that they are sold has changed. Okay, so earlier we used to have like a 6-liter drum, which means you could wash a certain amount of clothes. Now washing machines are sold in 8-liter and 10-liter sizes, right? So which means you're obviously able to add more load, or kgs rather, not liters, but you're able to add more load to that. What happened at the end of it was that consumers still kept using the same amount of detergent as they continue to expand their size of the washing machines. So obviously the quality of the wash wasn't as good as it would have been earlier because you weren't dosing in the right amounts. But how did we find this out, right? It was via researching the consumer. It was via understanding how they did their laundry, via observing countless number of people, and then coming up with the insight that dosage is an issue in this particular case. How did we fix it? A very simple thing. We put a scoop inside the detergent pack now. So now people know exactly how much they need to put in for a load full of clothes. So if consumers were morons, we wouldn't be spending billions and billions of dollars in researching them and in making sure that your product meets exactly that need that is unmet today. And then you're essentially trying to solve a challenge. I also think of like my prospective employees at P&G to be consumers now. And I can only say that they're more informed than ever before. They're more knowledgeable than ever before. So earlier, our system used to be pretty straight. And most of you are aware of the P&G application process, right? You take an IAPPA, which is a personal assessment. You take an interactive assessment. You clear those assessments. We look at your resume. You are invited for an interview. And then, of course, you make it to the company. And we obviously have a very set standard of communication that goes out to every candidate after each particular step is completed on their behalf, right? But what's changed now is candidates are very aware of this process. Whenever they feel like we're not communicating enough or that they need more clarity, they'll reach out to me via LinkedIn, they'll pick up the phone, they'll call us, they'll write us an email. This wasn't the case so much like back in the days, right? So like I said, the consumer is only becoming more and more aware, and I certainly don't think they're moronic.
I think that was a great, actually, insights about first the scoop. I think all of us would have used the scoop, right? And makes everything so much easier. And the other, that how you're looking at the employees as customers
Yes,
as
of
well,
course.
right? And yeah, so segueing into your career after XLRI. So you have had a diverse career. You have started with Mondelez, then you moved to Kellogg's, then to P&G. You must love snacking. It's like one snacking company to the other. So rather than like getting serious, like why don't you share your experiences with us
Sure.
throughout all the ups, all the downs, and everything?
Sure. And I do love snacking. So, fun fact, I actually worked at a Pringles plant when I was in Malaysia.
Wow.
So, I've like snacked on all kinds of Pringles, guys, and it's lovely. You know, so we're the ones who are doing quality checks every morning at the plant. So, you essentially eat a Pringle and you describe it to be crunchy, over seasoned, under seasoned, etc. And
Dream job, yeah.
Dream job.
Yeah.
But I grew sick of Pringles in the end of 2 years, that I can tell you. But yeah, so no, I mean, I interned at Mondelez. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a PPO that year. I think Mondelez didn't give out any PPOs within the HR fraternity for that particular year. So I sat for my final placements. Funnily enough, there was someone who worked at Mondelez who then took up the HR director position at Kellogg's.
Okay.
So they were pretty much like said that, oh, you know, we would like to hire Sanika when we come back for finals. So when I was going for my interview, I went for my interview. I had a good interview. And then they said, you know, we want to offer you. And at Excel itself, in fact, they told me that they would like to consider me for an international assignment. So I was extremely excited, and obviously it was a no-brainer, and I said yes to it. In India, it was a management trainee stint, so I did a bunch of roles. I worked in sales. So my sales director also offered me a job in sales and said I could switch. But then the HR director said, but we're sending you to Malaysia. So I said, okay, cool. I'll probably stick to HR now and go to Malaysia at this point in time. Then did a bunch of roles at the Sri City plant, one in talent acquisition, one in sales HR, and then finally moved to Malaysia at the end of my first year as a management trainee. And that experience was outstanding, right? I think it was the most phenomenal experience that I've had in my career to date. So being in a country where I didn't know anyone, I didn't have friends, I didn't know colleagues as well. I didn't even know the language, and you know, you'd say that the language is not as much of a barrier when you're working in a corporate setup, but I was at a plant and I was working with a lot of technicians, and as an HR, your primary job is to stay in touch, to be constantly going on the line, to be speaking with them, interacting with them. So it was imperative that I knew the language. So there was that. I, of course, had barely started out my career. So it was not like I came in with a lot of expertise. And that assignment truly taught me a lot. I went in with the approach of saying, you know, I'm from XLRI. I, of course, know so much. I'm going to change the world, right? Because when I was sent to the plant, it was told to me that there were a lot of challenges and issues at the plant since inception. So I'm going to fix it all. And genuinely, I went diving in head first. And that's where I made, I think, the biggest mistake. Because what I learned there was to really lead with your heart first. To get to know the lay of the land, to understand people, to really know what ticks them, to really know what they are looking for, and to really know that, you know, some of these solutions that I've thought of aren't like, you know, that extraordinary. There have been greater people before you who've thought of those solutions, but there might have been reasons as to why they haven't worked. So you really needed to figure out why something was done, why something was not done. And it was a very and a truly humbling experience for me. I then learned Bahasa so that I could communicate with every technician. What also happened as a consequence that because I was so overwhelmed with what was happening, I clearly started to see that people were treating me a bit differently, right? Like they started becoming a little bit aloof because they thought I was Little Miss Know-It-All, right? So it was so humbling. Then I started changing my approach at work. And at the end of 2 years, I think I came out as a very, very successful assignment. I managed to change perceptions around me. I was managed and I was able to drive a lot of change, but do it in a way in which I kind of took the people along versus just putting my point across and saying, this is what I want to do, that is what I want to do, etc. Then came a time when I was changing my assignment. It was either choosing an expat assignment or coming back to India. But for personal reasons, I had to move back to India at that point, and PNG just happened to happen then. And I applied to PNG and I made it. So I started off at Baddi. It was a huge difference again to be moving from Kuala Lumpur to Baddi. But again, I loved it. It was an assignment which again taught me a lot. I was the site HR leader there. I was leading a team of 5 people. So I could call the shots. I essentially was pretty much running the plant the way I wanted to because my manager was based and located remotely. So I was closest to the plant and therefore could make most of the decisions that I thought were best for the plant and what they needed. Post that, I moved into the HR operations role in Bombay, and I started reporting into my CHRO directly. I landed in Bombay exactly 1 week before the COVID lockdown. So I didn't have my belongings. I was living at my mom's place. All of my stuff was in a warehouse because everything was practically shut. And at the office, like COVID management became the biggest project. Like, so we were figuring out how to do things. Everything we knew about running a business just changed overnight. So we were figuring out how do we stay in touch with our employees? Should we call them to office? We need passes to get them to office. How do you figure out those passes? We had employees who were who started getting affected by COVID. So how do we take care of them? There were just too many dynamics to consider, and fortunately or unfortunately, I was spearheading that project. And again, it gave me so much visibility. We were able to actually set up a COVID care help desk. I know a lot of companies did it, but what was distinguishing about PNG was actually the fact that the HR and the medical community were answering every employee's calls. And we weren't directing them to random people. We weren't like, these are the 5 hospitals that I found out from Google. Why don't you contact them? We actually made sure that we solved the problem right through to the end. And that again was amazing because I saw care like I'd never witnessed before. There was a time when one of the technicians in Bhopal and, our plants at Mandideep, which doesn't have the best care facilities or medical facilities at that point, and he wasn't doing too well. And as a company, we actually decided to invest behind an air ambulance, and we got the person airlifted from Bhopal to Hyderabad where he could get better care. And the person now lives on and actually is our employee even today. So those were the kind of cases that it opened my eyes to. And I would say that as HR, this was work that I don't think I'll get to do again because it was truly life-saving, right? So I wouldn't think many other experiences would give you an opportunity to do that. I got promoted out of that assignment. And then now I'm looking after India Talent Practice, and I'm also looking after AMA, which is our Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa's Equality and Inclusion agenda. Again, this assignment has been super fun, which is why I'm back at campus. This has given me an opportunity to do that. We're trying out a lot of things. PNG Peakathon was one such initiative. I hope some of you have been a part of that. And yeah, I think I'm hoping that the end of this assignment is also equally successful.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, Sanika. Another thing that I think a lot of people and going through classes we've heard about is organizational culture, right? Every MBA student would have heard of it. They would have sessions on it. But whatever you mentioned about PNG, whatever steps that you took, that had a lot, that defined the org culture that PNG has, right? So that's the next question that we wanted to ask, was that you have been in this industry for around 7 to 8 years. You have seen cultures being built. You have built cultures yourself, right? What are the certain nuances which actually help in making that culture, making a culture of a organization very strong?
Right. So I think a couple of things that come to my mind. One is to put your money where your mouth is, right? I think that is predominantly supremely important. So I think 3 things are really important when it comes to building an organizational culture. The first one is trust in the people, right? So if you say, and at PNG, I'll just take an example because I've been with this company for the longest. So at PNG, if I say that I trust my employees, I'm truly saying that I know that they will work in the company's best interests and I will be able to match their best interests, and together we'll have mutual success. Now, if I say that I trust my employees and I believe that they will do right by the company, tell me how weird it would be if I started tracking their punch in and punch out time, right? So someone coming in at 9 o'clock and leaving in at 6 o'clock, just so that I know that we've put in a certain number of hours every day, and that's when I can trust that this person's doing the right job. So we don't do that, right? We say that we know this is the work you're expected to do. If you are able to do it at the end of your, your time frame, then you've done exceedingly well at PNG, right? So I think trust is one. The second important factor is, I think, empowering people and really letting them decide what is best in that particular context, right? So, for example, again, I'm working on my campus role today, right? Imagine, and my boss actually sits out of Singapore, so talent folds regionally in PNG. So imagine if she came tomorrow and told me what needs to be done across each and every campus, and at what time I had to go interact with students, how should I have my, when should I be talking to them, how should I spend my budget, what events would work best. It wouldn't really work, right? Because she's sitting miles away from where I am and miles away from where the actual work is happening. So she trusts me to do what she thinks is right by the organization. And of course, I do have certain deliverables to work on and deliver. And as long as I'm able to do that, she's at peace with the calls I'm making, right? So that to me is again another very important thing about building a culture. And the third thing I think is managers being held accountable for organization related work. If it's HR driving organization work, it's never going to come to life, right? So managers being held accountable for how their reportees are performing at their jobs, them being held accountable for the learning and development to be provided to employees, being held responsible for their compensation. Essentially, everything related to organization should come from the manager. Because, I mean, I'm sure all of us have heard it, people don't leave companies, people leave managers, right? So, as long as we're able to correct that first touch point with an individual, you won your organization culture. And if the manager is only focusing on business, he may be able to deliver great results in the interim, but it's not going to sustain him for a longer period of time, right? Because your people are your greatest assets. And again, that's another thing that PNG also believes in, and it's something that we've been driving very consciously for many, many years. In fact, one of our CEOs also said this very popular quote, right? You take away our buildings, you take away our brands, but leave our people behind and we build it all back in a decade. So that's truly how cultures are made, with tone from the top, and the three things that I said that are extremely essential.
Amazing. So like one of the things that all of us agree with, whoever is here, is the Excel culture, right?
Yeah.
So just one thing, what according to you, is Excel culture for you?
That's a very loaded question. Let me think about it. So yeah, I think one for sure is the network that you build on campus. That is Excel culture to me. You can reach out to your seniors, you can reach out to your juniors, you of course can reach out to your batchmates, and they will stand strong and they will stand behind you. We have a long legacy of 75 years, so you have alum everywhere. So yeah, I mean, and honestly, they're more than willing and ready to help. So that is Excel culture for me. Fortunately or unfortunately, but now as I look back at it, I definitely think of it as a merit, considering as getting out and into Jamshedpur is such a long journey. Often when you have like 2-3 days off, unlike other campuses, you stay put on campus. And you actually interact or are forced to interact with the batchmates that you have, around you. And that again builds bonds that I don't think are possible at other schools, right? And I truly, truly do cherish that to a very, very large extent. Third, of course, is learning, right? Just how much the professors invest behind you in your classes, the case studies that you work on, the projects that you work on, your group projects, exams. I think all of that is supremely important. And I think a lot of the subjects that I've learned here have opened my eyes into thinking about things a bit differently. And I think that truly I have to attribute to Excel culture.
I think all of us would agree to all of the things that you said. Okay, so like I think as an ending note, what will be that one thing which you're going to share with all the future leaders, which we can take away from your talk?
So like to be successful leaders in the future. I think the one thing that's personally worked for me, and I think that should be your mantra going forward, is promises made, promises kept. If you commit to something, deliver on that something, because that truly is the building block of credibility in the organization, right? I'll just give a very small example because it's at the top of my mind. So like, for example, Pratyush, when he was coordinating with me regarding the session, told me that he was going to call me at 10 o'clock. And trust you, but he actually called me at 10 o'clock. Like the clock essentially struck 12 when his call came. And that to me actually showed his commitment that this is a serious session and he means business, right? So then obviously I started taking it seriously as well. So thank you for doing that. And I think you already have that one trait that actually could make you successful. But yeah, I think that is the one piece of advice that I really want to leave everyone with. So if you have to remember one thing, promises made, promises kept.
Yeah, I think great. I think we'll take a note of all of the things that you have said. And yeah, with that, I think we've come to the end of the session. It was absolutely amazing interacting with you, Sanika. And I'm pretty sure everybody who has listened to it will share the same emotions as well.
Yes, thank you. It's been so good to be back. I had some pictures from my MAXI times. Please do share them.
Yes, we'll definitely do
that.
that.
Later on if you can, because I actually started talking to a couple of the MAXI members, thinking they were gonna, I think, ask me a couple of questions from my MAXI days. I don't know if I remember everything. Was there something that I'm missing out, and so on and so forth? And they were kind enough to send me some decks and photos from that time. So yeah, I mean, this is lovely. It was a trip down memory lane. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes,
I hope this show becomes like a great success.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.